Airports open.
Tonight's story is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction.
Who's gone off? Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
And this is?
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Houston, we have a problem.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Now, where was I?
Welcome to another episode of the Blokebusters podcast. I'm Paul, and today I'm joined by the absolutely wonderful Sully of the Jacked Up Review Show.
You flatter me.
Well, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I could have said you're an absolute shithead, but there you go.
I'm a real bastard, my dude. I am an absolute bastard.
You know, I think that's actually a record for the quickest time we've had swearing on the so, but there we go. But yes, thank you very much for coming on for this and actually kind of reviving. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. A series that we did for a little while, several years ago now, actually. It's something I've wanted to get back to, but it wasn't until you suggested that we talk about Spiral that I realized we could get into it. So, yes, thank you.
Whatever works. You got a pretty simple show, and we do a lot of the same stuff with franchises, and it's just cool to just see where does it eventually degrade or divide its audience or just suck.
Yeah, there's a lot of that out there. First up, though, I do need to go over a couple of quick things. The biggest change that people are going to see moving up is that the server that we have been using to host this podcast for the last decade has decided to stop running as of the end of this year. So I am in the process of moving everything over to a different RSS feed, funnily enough, at rss.com. So I will be putting this out on both of those feeds. For those of you that get this through the original feed, you are going to have to just make sure that you find that new feed. I will put both in the description of the episode and
just send it to Jigsaw.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Wrong one.
Yes. No, not him.
OnlyFans. Oh, wait. Oh.
Exactly. But yeah, so yes, hopefully those of you that are listening to this that are completely unaware of the change, now you know, and now you'll be able to switch over and not miss any of the future episodes. I do have a bit of a habit of going a couple of months between episodes, but life does that, unfortunately. And the other update is that as of the end of this year, we will be moving to a different network. And in the next episode, you will actually get to hear more about that, because I'll go into a little bit of a spiel about that, but not quite ready to drop the hammer on that right now and let you know. So that'll be a little surprise for next episode. But yeah, so getting into this franchise is, of course, as you will have realized by the title of this episode, we are talking about the Saw franchise. We will
saw my leg off.
Yes, I believe that happens a couple of times throughout the franchise.
Oh, that's right.
But
greatest hits.
Yes. But yeah, we will specifically be reviewing Spiral for the majority of this. However, I do feel like we need to go into our introduction to this franchise and also sort of explain what we've seen before we got to Spiral. So, guess first, how is it that you came across this franchise and what were your initial thoughts?
Boy, okay, so the first one I knew was in bad company when it had a high user score and an abysmal critic score, and I was pretty much with the critics. I'm like, yeah, I trust them. I'm pretty sure it's garbage. It got the riff tracks treatment. It got just so many people talked about, oh, it's so amazing. And then James Wan had a bigger career and got into action movies. And I was just like, God, he has a very eye-catching music video look in the worst possible way. Like, I just reject everything that's he has on screen because I just don't buy whatever he's attempting to create on screen because it's just so out there. And then I saw on Sci-Fi Channel, and it was just interesting because it's totally predicted the end is like the dead body has to be the killer. There's just no other way if they know all this detail, and it just I had it just until the last frame. You know, I can do claustrophobic low budget movies like Night of the Living Dead or Cube, but yeah, the fact that this was thought it was as brilliant as Seven and what have you, or Texas Chainsaw, I was like, no, this has this head up its own arse. And like the music ends, but the music sounds like a repeat melody of someone moaning like, no. I'm like, this is not a movie. And then here we are later, we're on installment number 9, and you know, I would just always catch one of these movies. It was a perfect kind of hate watch where you're just like, man, someone thought this was brilliant. Someone thought this was ingenious. Someone thought this made any kind of fucking sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do feel like these films were definitely good return on investment for these studios.
Oh yeah, Lionsgate loved it.
Yeah,
like, go.
I mean, like the initial film, perfectly honest, I enjoyed watching it just because it was different. You know, like most horror films at the time, they were starting to get just very hack and slash. I mean,
rip off Scream for the billionth time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Were you a Wishmaster fan? Just curious.
I've never actually watched the Wishmaster series.
Oh, really?
I am a Leprechaun fan. I do enjoy that.
It's a lot like that, Hellraiser and Gremlins, and I just figured that kind of kept horror kind of fun for a while. Just the cult underground kind of movie where you're like, did you see that outrageously violent movie? Oh, you gotta check it out. It's funny.
Yeah, and a lot of those films coming out of the 80s, they really sort of hit the nail on the head for that, and then the 90s just became more.
This was 90s.
Oh, really? That came out in the 90s. I'm surprised. Most of those cult classics come from the 80s. So
yeah, and Gremlins, it just kind of just the middle of the pile, and it was
okay.
Like Cube, it was pretty low budget, but it made a shit ton of money back, so they kept making them.
Well, I mean, I'll have to at the very least check out the first one, see what's going on there.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, no. I kind of enjoyed just the sort of simple nature of it compared to a lot of the films that were out at the time. And a lot of films, I think studios really want there to be big things going on, spectacle, really draw the audience in. So I was appreciative that it wasn't just that for the whole time.
Right.
And then I remember the second one just kind of being fairly dull, fairly boring. Wasn't really too fond of that one. The third one I actually enjoyed.
Have the supporting cop interrogate.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the third one. I thought that one was all right. And then I watched half of the fourth one, half of the fifth one. I couldn't bring myself to finish them.
Saw the fifth one like 3 different times. Like it was just always on like a free streaming site, and I just kept encountering it for whatever reason. And I'm like, this has like the most plot twists, but like 0 likable characters. There's like a crooked police chief, a guy who's faked his death, and all these other mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, and it really did just become kind of like Hostel just the gore porn, as it were. Like this is just okay, what's going to be the trap? How are people going to die? And all of this sort of stuff. And it's like, okay, there were definitely some inventive things throughout the series. I'll give it that. But they didn't seem to put any effort behind pretty much anything else, everyone.
I just didn't even find the way they killed anyone really all that clever. I was just like, so why do we care? We're just not invested. We're just going to stand here. It's not scary. It's not intentionally funny. It's just.
I mean, I didn't mean it was necessarily overly clever, but it was just.
I would rather go to an actual slaughterhouse,
Yeah, it was just more sort of interesting setups. For instance, I did enjoy because at some point I was just like, I'm just gonna look up like the deaths, because really like that was the only thing that was even remotely like I'm somewhat interested in what they did with that. Like about 4 years ago, I was like, I'm gonna look up one of the YouTube compilations of what are the most interesting deaths in the Saw franchise.
A 5-minute version of the Human Centipede.
And there was one that was basically it was actually one that Chester Bennington was in. It's like some kind of weird group thing that happened, and I was like, I saw it all happen, but I was like, okay, I have no idea what the idea is with this one. Like, was it just we're just gonna have 5 people die in quick succession? Because that's not really what Saw was about. Like in the beginning, it's just like, okay, now we're getting to the point of jumping the proverbial shark, and which, to be honest, I'm surprised there hasn't been a shark somehow. It's like a shark will drop on your head.
Sharks. That would be more interesting. See Mother Nature get its revenge on bad people.
Instead of like a pendulum blade coming down, it's just a shark will drop on your head if you do not finish. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I kind of just lost interest as it went on. That just like what little interest.
It was like every other year.
Yeah.
No, it was literally every year. So it's like, he's just going to get away. So are you supposed to root for him? Because I can't root for this dude.
Yeah,
slicing people up.
Yeah, and especially after the first one ended with a twist, regardless of whether or not you were able to figure it out, that meant every single other one was going to have some kind of thing at the end that flipped things on its head, or that made you go, oh wait, actually this was what was going on. And then it was like, okay, like you can't have that like every single time and expect it to work every single time.
It didn't work. And then it's just like, okay, so you're not only just too cute, you just don't care.
And like it's something where it's you're obviously watching everything happen, and maybe you're supposed to care about the people in it, maybe not, but then at the end there will be a actually here's what you didn't know moment, and then you're just kind of watching the whole film kind of going, okay, what's it going to be? Is it that person? Maybe there's this going on, like, and you're not really focusing on it, you're not actually paying attention, which
you're waiting for it to conclude.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's just it's a lot. And I believe they effectively were like, we're closing this franchise twice, 3 times, something like that, because there was, I think 5 was supposed to be the final one, and then I think 7 or was it 8 was the final one, and now
I think 8 was the final chapter, and or some other reboot, and then
something like that. And now this is technically it's from the book of Saw, which I didn't realize there was a book, but all right. Like maybe they were planning on making more, maybe not. I honestly don't know.
Did it make any money?
Well, I can tell you the figures for that, because this was a budget of $20 million, which I assume is the highest budget of any of these. I've not bothered to check.
All the extra actors, Sam Jackson, Marisol Nichols from Riverdale and 24 is the lieutenant.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that they got Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson and only spent $20 million.
Yeah, they made a joke and then they just went along with it. It's like, okay, I gave them a pitch meeting and they took it. It's like, they didn't care. I doubt they even read the pitch.
Probably not.
I'm the puppet master. I'm the dude who creates the Saw.
Well, I can tell you that the box office take for this film in 2021, so probably was somewhat impacted by the recent pandemic, but total box office of $40,618,920
Oh God.
So it basically, if you take the traditional adage of whatever the budget is, double it because you got to include marketing, it made about $600,000.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, by pretty much any metric, that's going to be the final entry, because if it's
Let's
not
hope.
making any real return, and that's obviously not taking into account digital sales and stuff like that. So it's going to make more money for them. People are going to buy it. But yeah, like
There were a lot of people I kept seeing. They're like interested. I'm like, why? I want to see it. It looks like it'll be bad. I'm like, well, there's other stuff you can spend your money on.
yeah, and there is sort of an aspect of
Porn costs less. That's free. Jesus.
there is an aspect of like Schadenfreude to it a little bit. It's just like, okay, like how far has this thing fallen? But yeah, no, I think we should probably get into reviewing this final entry, hopefully, for the franchise. Kind of a spoiler for ultimate reviews at the end, but I think it's quite clear we didn't enjoy it very much. But yes,
now for something completely different.
a man with 3 buttocks. Yeah, I wish we were reviewing now for something completely different. That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I feel like most people don't actually know that there genuinely was a theatrical release of something called And Now for Something Completely Different before they made Holy Grail.
Yeah, and Holy Grail.
Yeah, but yeah, and I know some people who don't consider it a Python film because it quite literally was they redid a whole bunch of their most popular sketches and released it as a feature-length thing. But I enjoy it. It's actually got some nice adjustments and upgrades to the sketches that they did. So
totally.
Definitely check it out.
You.
But let us actually get into this. So,
if there's anything to get into,
I know I feel like we're going to be bashing on a fair bit in this, and I don't want it to be totally that. Mostly because there are one or two things from the film that I did kind of enjoy. So I will touch on that in a little bit, but I guess since we covered thoughts on the franchise as a whole, what were you thinking when you sat down to watch Spiral for the first time? Like, what was your thought process?
Basically, I just figured with all the ridiculous people they enlisted, it's gonna keep getting wacky.
Okay.
So just whatever. It's gonna be wacky. It's gonna be all kinds of crazy.
Okay.
And I was actually surprised, I know it's Lionsgate, but I was even looking for their earlier logo, Vestron or Trimark Presents, because it did just feel like a rejected like mashup for like Leprechaun or every other kind of serial killer movie, Prom Night, Seven, and it just I think I just started going along for the ride and just guffawing just nonstop when just the lieutenant kept coming over, and then it felt like a cheesy like 90s cop movie. I believe in you.
Yeah, a little bit. I can see that there. I mean,
and just everyone just doesn't really sell their part, if that makes sense. And Sam Jackson totally phones it in. Like he gets the most ridiculous death.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll say because obviously I went over my thoughts on the previous entries that I've seen. I freely admit I think there's 2 or 3 I haven't seen at this point, and I'm not likely to revisit them.
It's too much trouble.
Yeah, but I went into this one thinking, okay, they've at least got a couple of bigger names, and it's not one of those things of, oh, like there's someone in it that you didn't know was going to be in it, and there's like a surprise name. No, it's Chris Rock, Sam Jackson.
Surprise is really needed here, and there's just not much surprise, unfortunately.
But yeah, I mean, I heard the name and I was like, okay, they can both pull in good performances. Like they can both do really well. So let's see what they've done. And I do wonder if they had any hand in the dialogue at all, because
I know Chris Rock was like a producer, so I wouldn't be surprised if he came up with some random stuff. That
yeah, probably. And it's
his gimmick, it's his idea,
Yeah.
and they went with it.
I mean, I'll freely admit, I thought Chris Rock gave the best performance. Like there are definitely scenes where he
plays it straight.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, you think the entire time he's going to do something like Chucky or something and come at everybody, and it's like, no, he's playing it completely safe. And I will say the violence isn't the most appalling that you've seen out of all the whole franchise. It's pretty tame compared to most of them, but when it happens, it always feels like it's by a different unit, like a second unit, because it doesn't mash up with the existing shots or other footage, and you're just like, did they film it with a different camera or something? It's just, it looks a little sloppy, and each time it just reminds you why you just find it so tasteless in segments for the other ones, because you're just like, it's just so ridiculous and cartoonish to where you're just like, I can't take it serious, and at the same time it is kind of unintentionally funny, and at the same time, this is a trashy movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me. Obviously Chris Rock playing it completely straight. Something
so rare.
Yeah, something I've really noticed is that there are many people who do lots of comedic roles, and maybe I don't enjoy them as much in most of their comedic stuff. But as soon as someone who is very good at comedy does a straight role, it's like, holy shit, that person can actually act. He
actually gave it his all.
Yeah, like I am on record as saying Will Ferrell, I pretty much can't stand his like comedies where I mean pretty much all of his comedies are, this person is an idiot and that's the joke. And I absolutely abhor that style of comedy.
There's no imagination or effort required.
Like it's pretty much just, in my opinion, it feels like you're just punching down. Like you're just like, this person's stupid and that's funny. It's like, no, there's got to be
and there's no challenge to any of it. It's just, it is what it is. Yeah, but it's like, well, if that's all there is, then there's nothing.
And there's got to be like some genuine like naivete in there. There's got to be some sincereness to it. Like say Mr. Bean, like he really has no common sense. He's not by all accounts a smart man, but he is completely sincere, and the joke isn't he's an idiot. The joke is, look at this weird situation that has been caused by like the action. And it's like that's the difference, in my opinion, to a lot of the stuff like Anchorman. Every single character in that is just, they're either a complete and utter idiot or they're conniving. Those are the only things. So it's like, I couldn't stand that. However, Will Ferrell in like Stranger Than Fiction, my goodness, that man is an incredible actor.
Unrecognizable. You're like, that's the same dude? What?
Yeah. And it's like Steve Carell, same thing. Like I actually do enjoy Steve Carell in some of the comedic stuff that I've seen him do. But again, his just straight performances in some of those are just incredible. Like Little Miss Sunshine, for instance, he's astonishing as the uncle in that. But yeah, no, it's something that I was surprised by with Chris Rock there. And then as you mentioned, like you're kind of watching that, and then you end up getting quite literal flash cuts to these situations that the corrupt police officers have been put in, and I don't know. Again, I haven't seen the previous two Saw films, so maybe by this point, this is the style.
Probably fast forwarded from.
It's like that thing of, okay, someone is stuck in the trap, and now we're going to effectively do the Matrix bullet time around you, but we're not actually going to slow the time down.
And we're going to bring Carrie Ells back somehow, and it's like, no.
It's like, okay, this tone doesn't fit with the other tone that you've got going, and obviously, like the weird camera stuff, like stuff that's going on there. Like, okay, that must be what those scenes have turned into now, and there's a lot of like flashing lights and quick cuts and stuff like that. But yeah, given that the rest of the film is absolutely not that, it is so jarring. It really is.
And that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
It is so convoluted for convolution's sake.
Yeah, pretty much.
To make any effort would just, you would even just, shit the bed sideways. You'd be like, okay, well, I mean, not gonna figure anything out.
But I do actually have to ask for this, because obviously you mentioned that some of the actual horror, the actual gore and stuff like that, not as bad as some of the other entries. So my question to you then is, what was the jigsaw trap killing, whatever, however you want to refer to it? What was the one that you, I guess, hated the least? Would probably be the best way to put it.
They all kind of blended together for me.
Yeah.
Usually the other ones stand out because of how, just the glowing dread, and there's no suspense, but you're just like, oh my God, that's just so graphic. It's like Hellraiser without any themes to grasp onto, you don't know what to react, because, there's no demon or somebody, preying on someone, monologuing. And here is just like, I guess I was just trying to figure out just one of the other in traps, like when they first like are checking out a house and somehow like capture someone or go after a killer, and it's like, I'm lost.
Yeah.
So how did they decimate an entire police station?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is one of those.
Sneak it in there.
It's one of those suspension of disbelief that is the most tricky with these films, because, like, okay,
there's nothing to connect. Yeah,
so anyone who's doing these. So, obviously, John, and I'm blanking on the name of the last name of the original guy, but I want to say Kramer, but I don't know if that's right. The original Jigsaw, he set up like warehouses and would get people to the warehouses specifically because he can control that. Whereas it does seem like a lot of these traps that you see, it's like, okay, this is in the basement of a police station. Like, how? Like, that I understand, and obviously spoilers for the film, should you for some reason decide to watch it after everything we've just been talking about. It turns out that the person who has been Chris Rock's partner throughout the whole thing is actually the person that's been doing the killings and is behind it all. Like, yes, even though someone who works in the police station would have access to the basement, did no one else? Is there no other setup that would make it incredibly obvious?
We were set up with the setup, whatever.
It is something where there was too much of a suspension of disbelief for me to go along with that one.
And I've seen the gal playing the lieutenant, it's like, I believe in you. I've seen her be good and stuff, but everyone just seems to just deliver their dialogue in just like very few takes, or just, it's so cliche. There's really nothing you can do except they just look concerned, and we're just so distracted by the over dramatic music playing or just the awkward camera angles. There's so many just like closed in claustrophobic shots, but it doesn't give the intended claustrophobic meaning. You're just kind of like, well, that was just one way of doing it, and they chose a bizarre way of doing it.
Yeah. God, so strange. And one thing I found odd about this is that like in thinking about the different traps that we see throughout the film and
it's
everything,
a trap.
I mean, it's a trap. But like trying to think about all of those things, and
what do they even mean? Like, they keep going around, hey, so and so is actually the killer. I'm like, well, we know going into this, it's got to be Chris Rock. He's said in interviews, I'm the creator of Jigsaw. So it's just like, that can't be it.
But it's like I was trying to think, like, as I was watching it, like, okay, are any of these survivable? Like genuinely, because in the original one, that there was an actual sense of, like, given the amount of time they had and what they had to do, it's like, okay, with the exception of,
Right,
I believe,
it's like the Running Man or just any of those other ones where a battle royale where you can do this. It's just you might have to lose a limb just to survive.
yeah, exactly. But I was,
There's no ticking time bomb here. You're right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, so who is the killer? How did that person just die?
yeah, but then it was like, okay, I don't think any of the traps that we saw are genuinely survivable. Like the one where the first one that we saw where the guy was hanging by his tongue in front of a train, like, number one, the second he kicked away that thing, like, realistically that tongue should have just come off. But then he's lying on a track. It's like there was pretty much no chance that he was going to get out of that. The one where the guy had his fingers in the thing, like you could argue, well, he took longer to wake up from the anesthetic than was thought. But it's like, yeah.
But we just don't care about him.
Yeah.
So it's just more kind of WTF-ish kind of, though.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like,
okay.
They went there.
Yeah, it's like I genuinely couldn't think of any of those things where, like, there was a reasonable chance that someone could have got out of the thing that they were in. Like, it just no. Especially the last one where he's got his dad, like, in the thing, and then he sets up the wire specifically.
Help me. Yeah,
like, it's like, okay, that one was on purpose, so that one was intentionally done so that he would end up getting shot. But also, not a single one of the people there, so not Chris Rock character, not Samuel Jackson character, even though, you know, it's established for a second that his voice is hoarse. So
yeah, it just makes me wonder if he just wanted to give very little effort, or
I mean, maybe genuinely on the day his voice was hoarse, so he was just like, okay, this character's just weak from this, so he can't talk very much or something. I don't know, but
he always says he knows everyone's lines, but I can't imagine there were many lines to have to remember that anyone was saying.
I mean, on that scene, no, not really. But yeah, it's like nobody in the room. Obviously, he's shouting like, no, whoa, whatever. But it's like, why does nobody just say, he's in a jigsaw trap, he is being made to do this, that, not, like, you know, actually explaining what's going on instead of just doing the stereotypical of everyone yelling and all of this.
It would be like if you had the movie Speed or one of the Die Hards, you know, like, imagine if Die Hard 3 was just Sam Jackson coincidentally and Bruce Willis arguing about how many liters of water were in there, but for 2 hours, you know, and you'd be like, no, the time limit is passed. You've explained it. You know, the first rule of screenwriting is show, don't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, this film does an incredible amount of telling at the same time as showing it.
And just building even more plot holes, because you already, like you say, have to suspend belief. Okay, how did they get captured? Okay, and no one saw. How did the death traps get set up? Okay, you know, this isn't going to be detailed like a CSI or Criminal Minds episode where they got to justify the gore and how smart the detectives are. You know, it's just, and I mean, Sam Jackson, for instance, was in a really good movie called Unthinkable, which was often described as Saw Meets 24, but it's hardly anything like any of those elements. It's just a marketing gimmick.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting in that he, you know, there was ethics into question in how he interrogated his prisoners who were terrorists. It was a thinking man's movie, and it's just interesting how here they're trying to be deep, and yet, like you say, they just keep digging themselves even more and just raising more questions. It's just like, you should have just left it vague. Like, the shorter the better. That, and it is still mercifully more shorter, but at the same time, it still just leaves more frustrating questions to where like you have to just literally be like a fan of just cheesy movies or just incomplete films that are kind of half-assing it, because I just can't imagine why anyone is going to be patient with any of these unless they just really don't care about a story and just want gore.
And I mean, obviously, as time and time again has shown, there is a market for that. And
I see people who are supposedly very bright and they think these are very clever, and I'm just like, but you hate all these other movies. I've done the same thing with Fast and Furious, where I've seen people who love those, but they hate something like Independence Day or Expendables or even a Michael Bay type blockbuster. And you're just like, so those are a lot of the same things. So I'm trying to find some consistency here, and there's really not any consistency. So it's consistently inconsistent, I guess, this time.
Yeah, the same people that absolutely deride like Transformers, what was it, like The Last Night or whatever the hell it is, but then go on to talk about how Fast and Furious 6 is the masterpiece of cinema. And it's like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Or they try to, like you say, they try to be trivial for the sake of just being dicks to one another, like who has a bigger dick than the other guy. Like, and oh well, I can't accept what they did in this newest Batman or Superman movie, even though they did something like that in Avengers. But I like Avengers, but it's like, well, if you have a problem with that, you should have a problem with the other one. It just doesn't make any sense. You were talking about how there's unlikable people. I will see people do that with some gangster movies. I'm like, well, I thought you didn't like this kind of narrative or this kind of storytelling style. What's different here? But then again, sometimes it really just is a preference. You might like Guy Ritchie but not like Tarantino. I don't know. It's up to you, but it does get interesting.
Yeah.
After a while, it's the same side of the same one side of the same coin, and you're just like, okay,
yeah,
I don't follow at all.
I mean, I'd like to talk to someone that actually like really likes Guy Ritchie but hates Tarantino. I feel like that would be an interesting conversation, because
right.
I'd never actually.
Guy Ritchie doesn't exist without the other, or I can do Coen Brothers, but I can't do some other famous, dark comedy guy. And you're like, what?
Yes. I never actually put those two together until you said it, but no, yeah, absolutely. That's.
I mean, I've seen some of it. I've seen some people say they can do Homicide or The Wire or Prime Suspect, but they can't do, I don't know, Law and Order or NYPD Blue. It's weird. But I can do Luther, but I can't do Line of Duty. I'm like, well, okay. They're kind of a lot of the same themes, but
yeah,
whatever. Or floats your boat.
Yeah, I'll be honest, we're not expecting a Luther reference there. Well done.
It's all good. You might like Spooks, but hate 24. I don't know.
Yeah,
different type of terrorist fighting show. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whatever floats your boat. This could have used a boat sinking or a boat float. I don't know.
Yeah, just like halfway through the film, they just kill off all of the characters and just have an entirely new.
I thought the lieutenant survived, I think. Or did she get sliced?
No,
the female.
No, she died. She had the hot wax or whatever that kicked her head, basically.
Ah, jeez.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like the way that scene was shot, it was like, okay, did he get there in time? But then she's just not in the rest of the film. So it's like, okay, I'm going to.
Okay, I think I do remember that now. It's like she was already dead. So he could have ran as as fast as Superman, and he still wouldn't have gotten there in time.
Yeah, and that's it. I never fully understood the timing of that particular one, because
it's definitely something that was lacking in all these shows, because it's hard to do. I get that, and at the same time, it just adds more attention. Like there was a similar movie called Line of Duty. No, not the show. That had Aaron Eckhart trying to save Giancarlo Esposito's daughter from a death trap. And like, if he doesn't get to the tank in time, the victim will like just drown from the flooding tank.
Right.
Pretty simple. They kept cutting back to it, just showing how high the water is rising. It needed something like that. But since everyone kind of again, magically disappears and reappears, often dead, you're just like, so why get attached? They're gonna probably be dead in the next scene.
Yeah, pretty much every single police character that had more than about 30 seconds of screen time was both a complete and utter asshole to the main character, and
I hate you,
and
just
then
'cause
also
you're not one of us.
gonna end up dead. Like, it's just like,
Or because we're related to, and yeah, the lieutenant, like, she just doesn't have anything except "I believe in you," and it just like, but anyone could say that. It's kind of her job, so
Yeah.
she's a plot device.
that was actually one thing, and again, I may have been disassociating a little bit, not really paying as much attention as I should have. But why was the lieutenant or the captain portrayed like? Was she also around at that time? And like, what? I completely missed why she ended up getting killed.
I felt like there was an implied sexual tension between the two, which would be add to the unprofessionalism of this whole police squad. But it is just like,
maybe
I just see no other reason other than that she's his boss and they carry a lot about each other. But just like, okay, but
yeah, I don't know. I also don't care too much about it to actually delve into it. So there you go. Now,
yeah,
one thing I did find out about when doing just a quick bit of research for this, did you know that they officially, like, the puppet that's in this is absolutely not Billy the puppet, completely separate puppet, as you can tell just by looking at it. Did you know that it actually has a name?
No.
Would you like to know what the name is?
Asshole number one.
Not quite. It is Mr. Snuggles.
Mr. Snuggles.
Mr. Snuggles.
Was that in the publicity material?
I don't know. It's just, I guess.
I don't recall it saying anything.
Nah, I think that probably in just talking to the people that made the film, like, I think just the people that were in that department were calling it Mr. Snuggles. And
they took it very sarcastically. They're like, they're gonna eat it up anyway, even if it's the
I mean, like,
thing since deep fried cheese.
Yeah, it's not referenced. I don't even know if Billy the puppet is officially named in the film. I think it's just like, it just is known as Billy. So yeah, maybe they just did the same thing here, where it's just like, okay, like it Mr. Snuggles. There you go. Why not? Because he looked like a Mr. Snuggles, didn't he? Oh dear. Well, I did try to find out, like, is there going to be another one? Like, what's going on?
For a typical prequel, it really doesn't break much ground. It's hoping to get a second or a third part. It's like,
yeah,
it makes you wonder if everything is just better as just a mini series.
Yeah.
People just don't make use of their time.
Well, I would like to just let you know, because obviously you were very invested in the franchise and really wanting it to do well. But yes, I figured you would be so thrilled to find out that there is going to be a 10th film. And it will be
not a 20th.
No, not a 20th. At the very least, it will be
gotta get to 20, baby.
It will be the 10th Saw film. It will be coming out in October of next year, and Tobin Bell will be back. So
I mean, he needs the money,
and potentially it could be Saw 9, because apparently I can't remember who it was that said it. It was I think it was the director who said, just because they made Spiral doesn't mean that there won't be a Saw 9, because Spiral is not Saw 9. It is in the same universe. So yeah,
are we going to get Tobin Bell and Chris Rock? I don't know.
Could be. There could be some kind, like Chris Rock just walks by in the background of a shot. So there's a quick connection there. But I will say, I don't like these to be 100% just ripping into everything, because so many people genuinely put a lot of time and effort into this, and I was just wondering, obviously, my sort of saving grace for the film, genuinely, as I said, was Chris Rock. I mean, he absolutely put in the work.
He came up with the idea. They took his notes.
He really like gave a solid performance.
And comedians love dark material. That's where they get their material to joke about. They look at the world very darkly.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite comedians is Christopher Titus, and I don't think anyone could accuse him of being too light and fluffy.
No, not. He is not light. He goes in, and I mean, for God's sakes, Danny McBride and company, were involved with the new Halloween. So I mean, there's a lot of people who, like you say, like to take a various twist to it. I mean, half the movies end up being kind of wacky versions of Twilight Zone or Monkey's Paw. There's a lot of amusing X-Files episodes, for God's sake. Yeah. This could have used a Scully and Mulder just coming in and saying, what the hell is going on? And it doesn't have even that. You're just like, it's just part cop movie, part Saw semi prequel. It barely, makes any ground. And then the rest, I kind of feel like it would have been something that you might have seen in an 80s movies. They're just, ratcheting up just the massacres. Somehow they wipe out a bunch of policemen.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think it absolutely would have been a aesthetic choice, but I feel like the Saw franchise would actually do well if it had the same visual style as like Hammer horror.
Yes, like because then you'd be ready for it. It would just be like, just go along with it. You're finding it out at the same time the characters finding it out.
Yeah, and
instead of
having that grain over the scenes as well would definitely like give it just that extra little bit of disassociation that you kind of need for that stuff. And of course,
and if they want to be like the serial killer greats, then they should try and be like said movies. They should have every other scene is a SWAT team busting down a door and getting impelled or saying we came up empty. Like, did you ever see Strangeland?
I have not. I've heard of it, but it's not.
It's kind of been rediscovered because Lionsgate was just doing so many psycho thrillers before, Saw ever came out, and that's kind of one that got rediscovered for how shocking it was. But and they've talked about doing a sequel to this cult movie. But yeah, it was like written by like one of the guys from like Twisted Sister or something like that. But it's not, I don't think it's half bad, but it's an acquired taste. And at the same time, I mean, they could literally just, they could say something if they could try so many different things. They could do crossovers, and that might be good. I guarantee you, they would make twice their money if they crossed over with like Chucky or Puppet Master.
Oh, probably. I mean, I feel like
just a versus movie for the sake of a versus movie.
I mean, then that Child's Play saw sort of some weird crossover where it's actually like Chucky is the doll
invented
that actually is doing it. Like I feel like that would be right. That would be good.
Maybe blame the other killer for it, and just so I don't know, he could.
Well, what would have to happen is that Chucky would end up killing a person or two in a way that looked a bit like Jigsaw, and so Jigsaw ended up taking credit for his kills. And then Chucky would be.
I like that. That's again, that's clever. That's fun. Both fan bases will love it because they're, how it is. Their favorite killer basically won and lost. Technically, there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
Instead of only Freddy or Jason or the alien or the Predator can take this match.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because Chucky would be incredibly pissed off that someone else is getting credit for his kill because it's his kill, and then Jigsaw, whoever did Jigsaw, would be pissed off because they not only I didn't kill them, but also they didn't do anything wrong, they weren't being punished. So both of them are annoyed.
They lost nothing, but it was a fun fake out. It was kind of cute.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be. I mean, and that could be something where it's like. Oh, it could be an episode of the TV series, it could just be a random, a Halloween episode of the Chucky series. I think that would be fun.
Isn't every day Halloween in Chucky's world?
I mean, pretty much.
Let's do Hellraiser meets Candyman now.
But yeah, like in all seriousness, like aside from Chris Rock, is there anything in this film that you actually did enjoy? Like, yeah, all yeah.
There are some decent shots, and it does move pretty. It's pretty tidy. It's not tedious, but at the same time, it moves way too fast to also leave enough of an impression. So, and, every other point we're making has both a positive followed by a negative. Like there's just no in between, really.
Yeah.
In fact, you end up kind of in the in between. Like if you were to say I liked it, it's not going to be I really, really loved it. And if you say I hate it, well, I don't hate it like the other ones, which I thought were a waste of time and just too mindless. But I still felt, mediocre experience. But at the same time, you're gonna probably see this with a bunch of drunk friends and guffaw. So it is a trashy party kind of movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like this franchise, it almost jumped the shark, but is genuinely still trying. Like, yes,
it makes me wonder where all these cops were, because the biggest problem with all the Saw movies is basically everyone just got abducted for unknown reasons and had no one to help them out and had no ability to fight back, and virtually no cops in here. We got cops, but they're pretty much just a shooting gallery.
Yeah, I mean, that was another weird thing that I didn't really think about until like a little while ago when I was trying to sort of revise my notes for this. It was like, were there only like 10 police officers for that entire district? It's like
it looked like it, and the rest were extras or implied.
Yeah, so
police siren.
Like there's that basically that one room that everyone gathers in, and then that's about it. You don't really see anyone coming or going.
You don't know how many stories it is or anything.
Yeah. So like it really feels like, oh, there's only 10 police officers for this entire city. Oh, okay. And then half of the police force just gets decimated. So
right.
Yeah. And another one of those things was like, okay, so if we leave the camera rolling for another 2 weeks, like does this city just devolve into mindless crime?
Then John Doe from Seven just shows up saying, "See, you never had a chance." Oh man, it was a Hannibal Lecter's idea.
Yeah, just anyone else's idea. I believe we pretty much covered any of the things.
No, we didn't. I'm just kidding.
That we would want to.
There's so much insight and intelligence to
yes, I mean that one time where you put down the cup. What do you think that meant? But no.
Oh, Paul, remember when you taught this in film studies?
I do, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Oh! Everyone walked out. Everyone said, "I'll take the D for attendance."
But yes, no need to flog the dead horse more than the Saw franchise already has. So,
there's dead horses.
I mean,
this could have used a dead horse. Maybe I don't know, a horse's head like Godfather. There should have been a scene where Chris Rock imagines waking up with Jigsaw's head eating him alive or something like Freddy Krueger. That would have been funny.
Or full on Jurassic Park where it's Alan hallucinating the Velociraptor.
Yeah, there you go. And he's talking to him. Dave. Oh yeah, there he sounds like the computer from 2001. Dave. I'm not Dave. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah. So many deleted scenes to get that region-free Blu-ray, allegedly.
Well, I think we should probably wrap it up there. So
they want 2 more hours of torture.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want to do to the listeners what the franchise has been doing for the past couple of years. But yes, thank you very much for actually coming on and sort of helping revive this and talking about this.
Thank you.
It's been really interesting.
This fun collab. We had to reschedule this so many times.
Yeah.
Our bosses were riding our asses, and the holidays got in the way.
Yeah, there's just
and then technology crapped out on us. So now,
so it can never just be easy, can it?
No, dare it.
But yeah, so why don't you tell people where they can find you and all of that good stuff?
Jacked Up Review Show is on all your favorite platforms: Anchor, Spotify, Podbean, even YouTube, and we tackle everything from movie franchises, much like yours, to TV shows, to music bands, to books, games, and utter variety. We even discussed the best and worst kinds of restaurants, or some of the best and worst burger and pizza joints we've been to.
All right. Yeah, go listen. Cool.
Jacked up reviews.
Yeah, cool team over there. It's definitely worth your time.
You are welcome anytime you want.
Yeah, I'll happily take you up on that. and yeah, for those of you that want to get a hold of me and Blokebusters, and
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, just search Paul Bunyan, you'll find us easily. No, it's,
he's got a bigger axe than Jack Torrance from The Shining.
Yeah, and definitely a bigger one than the one that was in Ready Player One. But yes, yeah, please do find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Blokebusters. You can go to blokebusters.com and check out a lovely little website there. I haven't been doing as much with that as I want to, but then again, I'm running this by myself. Sue me. But yeah, please do let us know anything else you want us to talk about or any thoughts you had about the episode. I'm going to try that again. Yeah. But yes, after everything that we've said and done here, one more time, thank you very much for coming on. It has been a blast having you here. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.
That's all, folks.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.